Look at your dog sleeping on the sofa. Now, imagine if its only purpose in life was to run inside a hot wooden wheel over a fire until it collapsed. It sounds like a bad cartoon, but meet the Turnspit Dog, a breed designed by superbiology long before we understood genetics. They were the original kitchen appliances. But they aren't the only ones. From bed warmers to combat beasts, history is full of dogs with bizarre 9-to-5 jobs. So, why did they vanish? Let's dive in right now. Our obsession with working dogs. You look at a golden retriever today, chasing a tennis ball with that goofy, carefree grin, and it is honestly hard to imagine that for 99% of our shared history, dogs weren't just friends, they were employees. We didn't domesticate wolves just to have something cute to pet, we engineered them into biological tools. I mean, think about it. We have huskies for pulling, greyhounds for sprinting, and terriers for digging out rats. But the history of superbiology goes so much deeper, and frankly, much weirder than just herding sheep. It's actually kind of wild when you realize that humans have been biohacking animals long before we even knew what DNA was. We saw a need, and we bent nature to fit it. According to recent archaeological studies, specific dog types were being standardized thousands of years ago, proving that our obsession with functional genetics isn't new. I look at my own dog sleeping on the couch and think, buddy, your ancestors had 9-to-5 jobs. But while some dogs were bred for glory or hunting, there is a dark chapter in canine history that most people have completely forgotten. There was a specific breed created not for the field, not for protection, but to be a living engine for a household appliance. And the story of how we created them, and then destroyed them, is going to change how you look at your kitchen forever. The dog that powered kitchens. Imagine walking into a bustling British kitchen in the 16th century. It's hot, it smells of roasting meat, and in the corner, mounted high on the wall, is a large wooden wheel. Inside that wheel isn't a hamster, but a long-bodied, short-legged dog running for its life. This was the Turnspit Dog, or technically, Canis vertigus, the dizzy dog. It sounds like a bad cartoon, but this was the reality of culinary technology for hundreds of years. Before electricity, roasting a massive piece of meat evenly required constant rotation. You could have a young boy turn the handle for hours, blistering his hands, or you could automate it with biology. These dogs were literally bred to run in a wheel, which was connected by a system of pulleys to the spit roasting the meat over the fire. Historical records from Dr. John Caius in 1576 describe these dogs as long-backed and crooked-legged, specifically designed to fit inside these cramped wooden engines. Honestly, it makes me a bit uncomfortable to think about. We usually associate dogs with freedom and open fields, not industrial machinery. But for the Tudors and Georgians, this wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. They viewed these dogs the same way we view a blender or a microwave. And here's the part they don't tell you in history class. The working conditions were so grueling that households often had 2 dogs. They would work in shifts, one ran while the other rested, which is actually where the phrase, "every dog has his day," might have originated. But they didn't just run, they were genetically engineered machines designed for a specific torture. Anatomy of a wheel runner. Let's get technical about the superbiology of this animal, because the turnspit wasn't just a random mutt shoved into a box. Evolution usually takes thousands of years, but when humans get involved, we speedrun the process. The turnspit was engineered with a very specific, utilitarian anatomy. They needed to be small enough to fit in the wheel, but heavy enough to generate torque to turn a 30-pound roast. So what did we do? We bred them to have long, tubular bodies and disproportionately short, strong legs. Imagine a corgi on steroids, but with the stamina of a marathon runner. It is a prime example of form following function, but in the most dystopian way possible. Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy, even classified them as a distinct group, noting their unique ability to endure heat and repetition. I find it fascinating, yet deeply sad, that we could mold a creature's bone structure just to ensure our Sunday dinner was cooked evenly. They had to be tough too. If a dog stopped running or slowed down, the cook would often throw a hot coal into the wheel to get them moving again. Yeah, it was brutal. This wasn't a pet,
It was a piece of kitchen hardware that needed fuel and maintenance. But the Turnspit wasn't an anomaly. It was just one entry in a long list of extinct breeds that we designed for bizarre, specific purposes, only to discard them when we were done.
Other breeds with bizarre jobs. If you think the Turnspit had it rough, wait until you hear about the other specialized workers we've erased from existence. The Turnspit is just the tip of the iceberg in the extinct breeds catalog. For instance, have you ever heard of the Techichi? This was a mute, small dog kept by the Toltecs and Aztecs. While we often think of dogs as guardians, the Techichi served a dual purpose. They were spiritual guides for the afterlife, but more practically, they were often used as living bed warmers, and yes, occasionally as a food source. It's a stark reminder that the man's best friend label is a relatively modern luxury. Then there was the St. John's water dog, the ancestor of our modern Labradors. These guys were workhorses for fishermen in Newfoundland, bred to dive into icy waters and haul nets or retrieve lines. They were so specialized that they had incredibly oily, water-resistant coats and webbed feet. It's incredible to see how specific the genetic tooling became. We also had the Cordoba fighting dog in Argentina, bred solely for aggression and pain tolerance to hunt wild boars and jaguars. A breed so aggressive they would often fight each other rather than mate, leading to their own extinction. I think it shows a strange side of human nature. We are incredibly creative at solving problems, but we often use living things as the raw material for those solutions. We didn't just give them jobs, we played God with their DNA, treating biological traits like software updates. How humans design dog genetics. This brings us to the core of superbiology. How do we actually do this? How do we take a wolf and turn it into a wheel-turning sausage dog or a net-hauling swimmer? It comes down to aggressive selective breeding. In the case of the Turnspit, breeders weren't looking for companionship. They were looking for torque and heat resistance. They would take the shortest, strongest dogs from a litter and breed them, culling the ones that were too tall or too lazy. Over just a few generations, you lock in those traits. It's essentially genetic programming. Charles Darwin himself was fascinated by this. He frequently referenced dog breeding in On the Origin of Species to explain how selection works. He realized that if humans could create such drastic changes in a few centuries, nature could do even more over millions of years. But there is an ethical weight to this, isn't there? When we design a creature for a single mechanical task, we often strip away its ability to be a dog. The Turnspit was reportedly a sullen, unhappy breed, likely because its entire existence was confined to a hot, smoky box. It's a powerful lesson in unintended consequences. We created a biological solution that worked perfectly, right up until the moment it didn't. And that brings us to the most tragic part of the story. What happens when the machine gets an upgrade? When innovation kills a species. Here is the harsh reality of technology. It doesn't care about biology. The Turnspit dog didn't go extinct because it failed. It went extinct because we invented something cheaper. In the 19th century, clockwork jacks and eventually steam power began to replace the animal-powered wheels. Suddenly, you didn't need to feed and house a dog to roast your meat. You just wound up a spring. Almost overnight, the Turnspit dog went from an essential household item to a symbol of poverty. If you still used a dog, it meant you couldn't afford a clockwork jack. Nobody wanted them as pets. They were considered ugly, working-class mongrels with bad temperaments. So, people stopped breeding them. They let them die out. It is chilling how quickly we can discard a species once it loses its economic value. By the late 1800s, they were effectively gone. Today, there is only one stuffed Turnspit dog left in existence, a little guy named Whiskey, preserved in the Abergavenny Museum in Wales. He is the last evidence of a centuries-old partnership. It's a somber reminder that in the face of industrial progress, biological utility is fragile. We engineered them into existence, and when we were done, we let them vanish into history. It makes you wonder, what jobs are we breeding animals for today that might be obsolete tomorrow? It really makes you wonder, if technology replaced them, are our modern dogs safe from being outdated? If this slice of history blew your mind, smash that like button for ChickaPaws. Which extinct breed should we dig up next? Let me know in the comments below. See ya!